apologize for the delay. I will call this subcommittee to order. We are here to consider House Study Bill 9, a resolution to at long last place the right to keep and bear arms in the Iowa Constitution. This was passed in the 88th General Assembly, and when it's passed in the 89th General Assembly, it will go before the voters for their final conclusion. The amendment, the resolution reads as follows. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The sovereign state of Iowa affirms and recognizes this right to be a fundamental individual right. Any and all restrictions of this right shall be subject to strict scrutiny. Joining me on this subcommittee today, Representative Klein, Representative Wessel-Kroeschell. We have 30 minutes for this subcommittee. Just a couple people are signed up. Subcommittee members will make remarks at the conclusion of the public's opportunity to make remarks. When you're speaking, members of the public that want to speak, you come up to this microphone at this podium. There are two buttons. There's one that's got a little person on it. You press that button, it will turn green. That means you're live. You speak. When you're done, you press it again to turn off the sound. So you only deal with the one button, which is the little person to turn it on and off. Please keep your comments succinct because, again, we have a short time for this subcommittee. I don't have a lot of people signed up for this one, but again, keep your remarks to the point. We'll begin with Richard Rodgers for.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Richard Rodgers, representing Iowa Firearms Coalition, which is an all-volunteer organization with a primary mission of ensuring that government recognizes and protects Iowans' fundamental right to keep and bear arms. We proudly claim significant credit for the fact that 400,000 Iowans now hold permits to carry weapons, compared to 30,000 only a dozen years ago. We've registered 4 HSB 9 and strongly urge its passage. As time is limited, I will dispense with most of the arguments for the bill because this has already been passed through 2 previous General Assemblies. But there are some things. First of all, briefly, the right to keep bear arms arises directly from the universally recognized right of self-defense. Many people wonder, though, why we need this in our state constitution. We're one of only 6 states that doesn't have protection for the right to keep and bear arms. But since the federal court, the Supreme Court has said that the states must recognize the right to keep their arms, why do we need it? I had that written down. It's because those who for nearly a century so successfully weaponized the courts to remove constitutional restrictions on government, vastly expanding its powers while throttling individual liberty, now refuse to accept court decisions making clear that the Constitution limits government and not the people. They've made clear their wish to overturn the critical pro-Second Amendment Supreme Court decisions of Heller and McDonald. At this very moment, serious attempts are being made to shamelessly pack the court, turning it into a political tool and super legislature. Should this effort succeed, the need for state-level protections of the right to keep their arms will be critical. The people deserve this right to be protected in our state constitution. Please pass it forward so that it can go to a vote of the people and let them decide. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlotte, against.
Thanks so much. My name is Charlotte Edie. I'm speaking on behalf of representing Giffords, a gun safety organization. We have major concerns with the strict scrutiny language here, which will make it much easier to bring and win legal challenges to Iowa's gun safety laws. Because this requires strict scrutiny as a legal standard to be applied to any firearm laws, it's much more likely a court could strike down important state laws that protect public safety, such as Iowa's background checks, concealed carry, and permit to purchase laws. Our statewide polling of Iowans in recent years found strong support for gun safety laws across the board. And among those findings, we saw a total of 86% of respondents saying they support requiring a background check for gun buyers. We want to make sure those laws remain in place and would respectfully ask legislators not to advance this amendment. Thanks so much.
Thank you. We have time for a couple more speakers. Anyone like to speak in support? Okay, anyone else like to speak opposed? Come on up, sir.
My name is Tom Chapman. I'm the Executive Director of the Iowa Catholic Conference, which is the public policy agency from the Catholic Bishops of Iowa. And we are registered against House Study Bill 9, which we believe would restrict the state's ability to regulate weapons in the future. We think this strict scrutiny language might put current regulation in jeopardy, such as background check and permit requirements. I also think that these decisions are best left to the legislature to decide. The right to bear arms is found in our Constitution, will always be there. We know people have a right to defend themselves, sometimes using deadly force if necessary. But this legislation goes beyond that issue. So we definitely are opposed to it and hope that you would not move it forward. But thank you.
Thank you. Representative Wessel-Kroeschell, would you like to make some comments?
Sure, thank you, Representative. This is, again, I want to say kind of an odd time to be having this subcommittee. We are living in a divided world. We saw our U.S. Capitol attacked by insurrectionists just less than 2 weeks ago. And tomorrow we will be celebrating the inauguration of our next president. But this Washington, D.C. has been essentially shut down due to the threat of violence. Iowans, no doubt, love their guns, and they want to be able to protect themselves. But Iowans also deserve and want to be safe from gun violence in their homes and in their communities and their neighborhoods. We all expect to be safe. So much has happened over the last year. Just here in Des Moines, we saw at a Trump rally an individual shoot at 4 teenagers because they were saying things he didn't like. I'm going to say teenagers often say things I don't like. I raised 2. They can be really annoying. But turning to gun violence is just wrong, and this amendment is going to help people turn to gun violence over and over again. It's one thing to turn to a gun when you are really being threatened, but when it was just a disagreement, it's wrong. Gun violence is a uniquely American epidemic. No other industrialized country experiences the level of gun violence that occurs in America on a daily basis. Unfortunately, we are becoming more divided and our disagreements are intensifying. Only 3 states have enacted strict scrutiny laws, and Iowa should not be the 4th. It is a dangerous attempt to undermine Iowa's reasonable, popular public safety laws, and it would be a truly extreme, far-reaching change to our Constitution. The truth is that the language in this amendment poses a direct threat to Iowa public safety laws that protect our communities by keeping guns out of the hands of people who we all agree shouldn't have them. This isn't a conversation about your grandfather's hunting rifle. The fact that military-style assault weapons and high-capacity magazines are routinely available to people is alarming, and frankly, it's news to many Americans. The reckless disregard for gun violence that plagues so many people's lives is morally bankrupt and has nothing to do with protecting freedom. One fundamental freedom every American should have is the freedom to be safe in our homes, our neighborhoods, and our communities. Freedom to live our lives without the constant threat of gun violence hanging over our heads. This constitutional amendment dangerously leads us in the wrong direction from where we need to go and will tie the hands of lawmakers. Thank you.
Representative Klein, thank you, Representative Wessel-Kroeschell. Representative Klein, would you like to make any comment?
I'm sure you'll cover them sufficiently.
Okay, thank you. A couple of things in my closing remarks here. Let's talk a little bit about the strict scrutiny language. The Supreme Court reminded us in the McDonald's case, the Second Amendment is not a second-class right. It's not subject to an entirely different body of rules than the other Bill of Rights guarantees. Fundamental rights deserve strict scrutiny. Why would anyone want Iowans' rights, one right or another, less rigorously protected than, say, the right to freedom of speech, or the right to peaceably assemble, or the right to freedom of religion? Our Constitution sets out certain God-given natural rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Unalienable rights, unalienable, a right which cannot be sold, transferred, or in any way taken away. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, unalienable rights for all Americans. The right to someone's own life and the pursuit of their own happiness, their own destiny, cannot be separated from the right to defend that life, hence the fundamental right to keep and bear arms in our Second Amendment. Why do we need this amendment to Iowa's Constitution? Perhaps the better question is why we are only one of 6 states that does not have this fundamental right already in our Constitution. We need it because it is profoundly apparent in 2021 that freedom and liberty are fragile and under greater assault than at any time in our history. We need it because the landmark Second Amendment cases Heller and McDonald were decided by only a 1-vote majority. We need it because 4 U.S. Supreme Court justices disagreed in those cases that the Second Amendment protects a fundamental individual right to keep and bear arms, and in their dissent, they created a roadmap for the future destruction of Second Amendment rights. This is why it is critical to have this firewall in the state constitution, and why the strict scrutiny language is so important in preventing backdoor assaults and undue burdens on this fundamental right. Our language is written with the knowledge that 44 other states' constitutional provisions in many cases failed to protect against egregious gun control laws. Strict scrutiny language is of great importance in protecting this fundamental individual right. It is the highest level of review and requires the court to determine if the government's action is narrowly tailored to serve a compelling government interest. Current laws that take the least restrictive route to advancing a compelling government interest will be safe. The permit process, for example, has been held up in several states. House Study Bill 9, a joint resolution proposing an amendment to the Iowa Constitution, reads as follows: the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The sovereign state of Iowa affirms and recognizes this right to be a fundamental individual right. Any and all restrictions of this right shall be subject to strict scrutiny. For freedom, I will, with great enthusiasm, advance House Study Bill 9 to the full Public Safety Committee. Thank you.